Hey, how's it going, everybody? It is now episode 27 of the AE show, and we're doing a solo episode today. Not much like, I suppose, kind of just riffing. I haven't really taken much notes to kind of go off of, but I do have kind of a feeling and emotion that we're going to run through of some current events. Specifically, the first time I had a solo episode, I did it completely in Vietnamese, right? Second time I did a solo episode, I did it completely in English. Today, because, this is my canvas, this is where I get to try to play around with things, we're going to do a mix. It's going to be a mixture of English Vietnamese. I feel like I'm going to try and segment it so that when I edit and cut it, it's easier to sort out. You have your English one and your Vietnamese one for when I do the clips. So I'll probably start with mostly English and then do the last part in Vietnamese. So look, if I suppose I'll put a explanation here. If you don't want to hear the English version, it's not a direct translation. It's more so, a very interesting perspective is people have different kind of thoughts and emotions when they speak their different languages. So I'm going to kind of reiterate my thoughts in English and then also reiterate in Vietnamese. And because I'll be speaking on a different level, different perspective, the messages, though the same inherently, will kind of be communicated uniquely, I suppose. So that's why I'm gonna run that. From a linguistic standpoint, it seems quite fascinating. So to start off, if you're listening to this section, this is going to be the English section, and I'm going to be speaking about. I think you tune into this is mainly understand where I'm coming from, having grown up in Australia and speaking the language that results from me growing up in Australia. So today is the 9th of May. It's a Sunday, and this it's been, I think, 2 weeks since a famous, the date of the 30th of April. Now, that date's a very important date for Vietnamese history, because that's a day where a lot of change happened in the country. Damn, I can't remember the exact year. Give me a second. I've got a computer here. I'll figure it out. This is embarrassing. I think it was 1974, 1975. Let me see. April 30th, Vietnam. 1975. I was correct. Yes, so, in fact, better than me telling you, I'll just read what it says. The South Vietnamese stronghold of Saigon, now known as Ho Chi Minh City, falls to People's Army of Vietnam and the Viet Cong on April 30th, 1975. The South Vietnamese force had collapsed under the rapid advancement of the North Vietnamese. That's exactly what happened. So, I'm not here to give a history lesson because I know that my target audience being young Vietnamese people, especially Vietnamese youth in Vietnam, you guys don't like to engage with much history. You kind of like to fucking not talk about it, which is cool, and I respect that and I understand where you're coming from there too. I won't go too much into that until I've got more of an opportunity to speak about that when I'm speaking to someone who's from there and can flesh that out better. But I'll make that a highlight. The youth in Vietnam don't like to talk about history. So in this video, I'm not going to be, or this episode, I'm not going to be going into too much about the history. I'm more focused on the nuanced kind of implications of today. How socially we now associate with each other as a result of that day. If you're interested in the history, it's a whole lot of resources online, YouTube, the History Channel, whatever. Watch as much as you can, get as many perspectives as you can, because that's what I did. Personally, I being afforded more of a historical connection, was able to, through my high school experience, kind of sit and learn more perspectives of the one story. So for that reason, I've been more sensitive to kind of hearing what everyone's got to say and kind of understanding the emotions that run wild today, that exist today. So I think, and this is, I've never been like a big proponent of the subtle Viet traits. I feel like they're very tiptoey. They don't very surface level Vietnamese sometimes, where I suppose as I talk about it, I realize there needs to be something that exists like that, such as subtle Viet traits. It opens as like something that's inviting to everyone. So if you're Vietnamese but you're not that connected with your culture, very surface level, there are things that you're going to enjoy and engage with, just quickly food and stuff like that. But if you are deeply rooted in that culture, depending on whether you live in Vietnam or you don't, there is opportunity for that as well. And I've seen that. However, my perspective is I felt they were kind of tiptoey on things. It does seem, and of course because it was started in America, there is a certain lean towards one way more than the other. However, as they've existed and I've kind of followed along, I've seen that they do start to kind of open for dialogue, and I feel like maybe that was the approach that they wanted, where there's a level of needing to warm up to this. You make a group where all Vietnamese people can join. You need to kind of make it welcoming and warming before you make it contentious. In fact, I think every year, they make a public post about, hey, it's this the year, and it's not, though it's definitely an important time of the year for historically for Vietnamese people, but everyone's got their opinions, everyone's got their history, and let's try to be respectful and have discussions, right? And when I read, I am quite happy to see, there is a lot of forward thinking. There is a lot of nuanced ideas that have come, ideas that have removed that far beyond just simply calling other people out, or name calling or things like that. Ideas that are more, hey, it's time to kind of bring this thing together. Quick note is, I intend to be very apolitical on this. I'm not trying to take a side. As far as I'm concerned, the side I take is the side of being Vietnamese. I just want to see Vietnamese people get along with Vietnamese people. I think I've had an experience of how nice it could be to, being someone who's away from his home, reconnect with that and its people. That I felt it's a very value experience for me. So, and I think everyone can be afforded that as well, if we just kind of take the time, be a bit sensitive, and kind of through time open discourse and discussion, and make way for reconciliation. So specifically, if we're looking at this perspective over, as I'm speaking English, it would be people who live in Australia. We see the Vietnamese people majority living in Australia would have refugee backgrounds, right? So they had to escape, and their perspectives, they feel that they've escaped. So that day was like a very sad day for them. It's called the Fall of Saigon for them. And I said I wouldn't get into too much history, so I'll turn back into the contemporary issue. Is as of recent, we've had on public polls, we do have the back and forth, people calling different people traitors and things like that. Specifically, something that I do want to touch on, something that happened recently and locally in my community, was this overseas student, Vietnamese boy, in high school, who he had his friend film him pulling down a South Vietnamese flag that the Vietnamese community in Australia to this very day still use to represent themselves, which is the yellow flag with 3 red stripes in the middle. Pull it down and kind of step on the flag and swearing and things like that, calling your fathers were traitors and things like that, which fair enough. I see that, and the first thing is hurt, like pain, because it's such a hate-filled a show of so much hate. The very act of taking out anyone's kind of flag and diminishing it is sad, and that's across all nationalities, with regardless of what side you're on. The very fact that we're in a situation where one person wants to denigrate another flag, that we've got a lot of issues going on, and so it should be more sad for that than anything else. So first of all, kid did that. Now, two sides. The side for anger and the side for compassion. The side for anger I completely understand, because if you're from the perspective of having suffered through all that, this is not what you want to see. So it definitely caused a lot of outrage within the Vietnamese Australian community. People calling for all sorts of things. But within the Vietnamese Australian community, though it is deemed the majority of one certain leaning, it doesn't excuse the fact that there are people who feel otherwise. So within discussion on social media with the Vietnamese Australian community, there are people cheering the kid on and things like that. Now, I step in to kind of think, instead of focusing on the anger, because I didn't live through that, the pain and the suffering of 1975 and pre-1975, regardless of which side you were, it was pain and suffering across the board. It's war. That's my understanding. War's never good and no one wins in war. So I step in to kind of say, well, it's sad to see this, because kid's 17. He's overseas student, and I'm not here to talk about the laws or anything like that. My understanding, it was the Vietnamese community reported that he was suspended from school, him and his friends, and I think they were taken into, from what I heard, not to be quoted, because articles post all sorts. You get sometimes you get very shifty reporting happening on either side. You might have, the story might be true, but then the facts of the story might not be. Things like, yes, that kid did all that, but no, he wasn't arrested or anything like that. They'll probably say, oh yeah, he's been taken into custody or whatnot. So that I can't confirm if he had been taken into custody or anything like that. Although I do feel like, first and foremost, I don't know. I don't know enough about the law or anything like that. Kid's 17, so it's under 18, but he's also an overseas student. Don't know what that falls under. Australia doesn't necessarily have freedom of speech. So that happened. It's a situation that I just want to really touch into, the fact that I feel sad by that. I'm saddened by it. It's kid's young, and also on the side of being sad for it, and I hope I don't want people to feel like taking the kid's side or anything like that. I'm just thinking, kind of like why I start this show, to talk to just everyone. I feel like everyone's got context, and if we're talking context, we just move back. If what this kid's done isn't a good thing, right? If you're on the side of thinking this is bad, and I think that's the majority of what people think, because regardless of what it is, just the act of putting something on someone's flag is just not good, right? If that's what you believe, then would you also then believe that he's being 17, growing up how you grow up and raised how you're raised, that's your understanding? You stand for what you believe in, so too can quote unquote misguided 17-year-old. So I feel like it's not an opportunity for, it shouldn't, we're always so quick to run to be angry and hate, whereby it's not a good opportunity. It's more an opportunity the learning opportunity. This is just sparking conversations. We can't have this. That's all. This is a fact. The fact that we do have overseas students from Vietnam who share our heritage. Yes, history put us on opposite sides, but to share our heritage, and we mingle in a multicultural society. And no, I'm not excusing what the kid did. I think that should never have happened, but there should be a conversation to that. Why is it happening now? What's going on, right? And because I'm more poised to believe just some 17-year-old lashing out, being immature, but it doesn't say that we shouldn't there isn't anything more to be fleshed out from this. If you, I think this is something that should never happen again, and not because we're gonna, punish people and things like that. Because it should never happen, because we should all be trying to be more compassionate and understand. And I think by talking and communicating, that's our opportunity to do so. I just think that so much is caught up in hate, and I've always said to the generation that have to live through it, I'm not here to debate either way for anyone. I can't. You've experienced it. There's this suffering, this sadness, and this that no level of right or wrong from my end was going to make up for that. But then I turn to people who are my age, my Vietnamese youth who are growing up with me, and I think surely there has to be something more. I've had the pleasure and the experience of going to Vietnam, rekindling with my heritage, and I've made friends with people who are my age, like different roll of the die, and we're different positions. We end up in different places. That's the only difference. But apart from that, same heritage, the same culture. We understand each other. Our what this person who lives in Vietnam treasures and values, taught by their family. I pick up the same similarities through the way I've been raised. So there's a camaraderie, there's a brotherhood and a companionship in that, that I think we really kind of neglect and put aside if we, by just constantly roped up and things like that. The irony is, young people in Vietnam don't like history, yet got issues like this, and maybe that's why they avoid history, so that we don't have these contentious issues. Obviously, more and more I talk about and I step into history, I touch that territory of just things that I don't want to kind of play with, because it's a sensitive topic. I guess it is, and I think because I'm known to always trying to have a comedic spin sometimes. I want to try to be a bit more reverent when it comes to things like this. Moving forward, I think. Anything else I need to cover? Yes, a similar instance, right? But happened on an opposite similar instance. It was 2019. Can't remember. It was 2018 or something. 2019. It was 2018. Vietnam was in the semi-finals, quarterfinals of the AFC Cup, which all my friends who know me are like, Simon doesn't play soccer. He'll just keep running on and on about the AFC Cup, because Vietnam came really close to winning at one point. And that while they were winning the championship, I happened to be in Vietnam, and the country just lit up. Everyone got so excited. And just to see, people just go completely insane. Like, the spirit of the people lift up from just the joy and excitement of seeing their countrymen succeed on the global stage. That's at least the Asian stage. Phenomenal. But during that time, while I was in Vietnam, in Australia, people were watching it as well. And from my understanding, I should probably pull up the post that I made a post about, but my understanding was that what happened was some young Vietnamese students or whatnot pulled out the current flag of Vietnam, the flag that's not recognised by majority of Vietnamese Australians who live here, because of their experience and the suffering that flag represents for them, which we understand. We have to take that into account. So they took that flag out to kind of celebrate. And I mean, two ways of looking at it. Of course, there is definitely a level of trying to antagonize the community when they do something like that. They probably know what they're doing. The guys are probably assholes themselves. There is also the other side of, hey, they're celebrating their country, their knowledge and their understanding of what their country is. you can't take that away from someone just because you've got your own experiences, which I always try to respect. That's why I don't try to take your experiences away from you, just because I'm talking about history and facts. So the story goes, oh, I'm so bad at this with tangents. They took out the flags and they were kind of, I guess, beaten up by about some other Vietnamese people in the pub that they were watching the soccer at, and it was a video, like you could see these guys getting the flags, and they was like kind of stepping on the flags and I think pouring water on them. And now to this day, like I'm just like, what are you pouring water on a flag for? You know what I mean? I get it, like, because then if you pour water on a flag, you can't really fly it. It doesn't flow. I understand. It was an odd thing to look at, right? And I'm sitting here in Vietnam watching this on a video, and I just think, again, similar situation. Sad to see, a flag being respected, right? Regardless of what side you take. Just disrespecting a flag is rooted in sad history. So that's what I thought. And then I also thought, well, what a bunch of idiots, the people who pulled those flags out, because they should know better. It was the Cabramatta, the main Vietnamese majority area. That's definitely not the area you'd want to carry something like that, right? Someone would argue you're asking for a beating. And yeah, I'm sensitive to that side as well. I'm not completely like blind to that. I think it's a very reasonable side, especially if I'm the person who's going to sit here and talk about how, I don't deny anyone's history, and I think just because you're talking facts doesn't mean that what this person's gone through doesn't matter, So there's that side. And then there's also the side that I sit and I go, well, but wasn't this what we escaped? Australia is, well, we don't know anymore now, free country. The country that's kind of put towards us as being freedom of speech and being able to kind of represent yourself however you want to, as long as you're not a terrorist, I guess. You're not trying to, no terroristic threats, things like that. So when I saw that, I thought, I suppose as I get older and I can understand emotion a bit more, I understand, like, just as how I respect that history of someone who's actually experienced something firsthand needs to be respected. I understand why people would feel so strongly about it and go about that. But I think a part of me also is hoping for something better in a sense of like, well, in Australia, we are afforded those rights. We are allowed to, represent whatever flag we want to represent. So I felt there was almost this hypocritical air about it. And my breakdown being this: if I were to carry an old the South Vietnamese, the Republic flag, to Vietnam now, I would be arrested and probably experience a hard time. However, that I can understand, because I can understand that that's the country and that's its laws and that's what it's existing as, right? I understand it. I also appreciate that not everyone wants to accept that, especially those who really feel that they're at a loss, that they've lost something through the conflict, and I respect that. However, speaking on this, I can only speak of kind of explaining why if it doesn't, I feel like an action like that does not make us any better. Not that we're trying to be better, but it's the Vietnamese Australians who live in Australia, the Vietnamese Australians. Growing up, I had always been instilled the idea this is, my parents worked hard to get me here, this land of opportunity and things like that, freedom of speech. We're not like held down. We're able to do. So it feels so odd talking about freedom of speech when I just talked about, and that's why I'm never too sure, like how these kind of things will break down with the law, because it's freedom of speech, right? But the point being, this is a country where people can fly their own flags. Vietnam right now is a country where certain they won't let you fly certain flags. But if I go over there and I get arrested for it, I understand because that's what normal is over there. I'm going and I'm following their rules. And so in our country, our rules is they're allowed to fly whichever flag you want to fly. But when we, as Vietnamese Australians, kind of go against that, it leaves, that's what leaves a bit of a hypocritical taste in my mouth. It makes me think, well, it doesn't make us any better than what's going on over where we reject and don't want to associate with. Now, being very sensitive to this, I also understand that not everyone sees it as, the rules here and rules there. They see it as my old place and it's not the way I want it, and this is my current place and this is the way I want it. And I understand that. I understand where that's coming from too. But I think that a moment when I saw that happen, it was mainly, and it's mainly older people. My worry is just that us as a younger generation will continue to carry this fire of conflict, and it's just not conducive for peace or any kind of, reconciliation. Because really, there is a lot of opportunity here between between the various diasporas of Vietnamese people. We should, if we're able to get along and understand each other, we're really able to bring things tighter. You have so many people who live outside of Vietnam, young Vietnamese people, I want to learn Vietnamese again, things like that. And you're thinking to yourself, well, you hear people say it a lot, but you see the difference between the people who do and who don't. People who want to put the effort in and just say it, but because it feels like the right thing to be in the camp of. I should, as a Vietnamese person, I should be in the camp of trying to speak my language more, but you never make time for it. I feel like another avenue besides the whole going to learn Vietnamese and studying is reconnecting with your culture, sharing this bond with people who are literally your same heritage. And it's a whole country full of them. And I think it'd be a missed opportunity if we just cut ourselves off from such a rich and wonderful culture that's still to this day growing, and it's like a mixing pot, and it's what it is now. But as the years go by and time influences change, it becomes something different. And my worry is that I want this thing that becomes different to become something that's better and better for all of us, as opposed to something becomes worse off or it stays the same.